Today we're talking about the 32 children of light. Are you one of them? Now today we're going to be exploring the emerald tablets of Thoth, tablets that are claimed to be over 36,000 years old. We're also going to be taking a look at the secret book of John, a book that was once banned by the church, as we explore the idea of these beings of light, what they are, where they come from, and what their purpose is, and what you can know about them. Now, when we talk about these beings of light, one thing I want to make clear is that this information that we are going to be reading, for those who follow my work, know that I am not a fan of the Emerald Tablets of Thoth. However, I am a very big fan of the secret book of John, and we're going to be exploring exactly why that is. As we uncover all these interesting ideas, we're going to be taking a look at what the tablets say, what the secret book of John says, ideas of a hidden secret beneath Atlantis, a lot of interesting stuff we're going to be talking about today. So we're going to get started right away, but as always, hey, make sure that you like and subscribe. My channel is about raising consciousness and getting this information out there. So when you hit like and subscribe, it helps the channel, but that also helps spread this information around, and I appreciate it very much. So please hit like and subscribe. It just takes a second, but it helps out a lot. Also, if you want to help out my channel and see it grow, help me create bigger and better videos and reach more people, support over on Patreon. It's the best way to support. Just go to patreon.com/MorgueOfficial and you'll get access to our members only videos. There's a lot of members only videos. There's a new one every single week. Last week's members only video was about memories. Where are memories? They're not stored in the brain. That was last week's topic. So if you want to support there, just go to patreon.com/MorgueOfficial, or you can support on YouTube at tier 2 or higher and also get access to those videos as well. Let's see. Reminder, hey, there's scammers in the comments, people pretending to be me, saying to join my WhatsApp and join my Telegram. I don't have a WhatsApp. I don't have a Telegram. So just ignore the scammers. That's not me. There are also people and groups out there who don't like what I'm doing and don't like what we are doing, and so are spreading a lot of disinformation and misinformation about me and what we do in our group. So just use logic and reason and don't fall for the BS. All right, here we go, my friends. We're talking about the 32 children of light. What are they? Are you one of them? As we explore the Emerald Tablets of Thoth and the secret book of John, a book that was once banned by the church and considered a heresy, and we're going to be seeing exactly why that is. So to get started, we are going to start reading from the Emerald Tablets of Thoth, and then we're going to read a bit from the secret book of John and compare the two. And this is going to be very important because I want to tell you right away, for those who don't know, and I'm sure most of you watching my channel, by the way, know this, but in case you're new, I do not care for the Emerald Tablets of Thoth. Why? Because they are made up. They're completely false. They're fake. They never existed. So there's this, I'll just put it out there real quick because I've talked about this a lot before. There was a guy named Maurice Doreal. Maurice Doreal claimed to have in 1925 found these emerald tablets and translated them. Now, these emerald tablets, he never said how he found them. He just said that he had communication from the Great White Brotherhood who told him to go find it. And he just said, and so I found them. He didn't say how he found them or where they were or anything. He just went, I had some adventures and then found them. And then he said that they were made of this indestructible green material that defied the laws of physics, that was inscribed with secret Atlantean language that communicated to the reader's mind. But then, of course, he said that he had to give the emerald tablets back to the Great White Brotherhood, and so he doesn't have them anymore. But he was allowed to translate them, apparently, and this translation is what became the Emerald Tablets of Thoth. So the question is, do you think that they are real or not? Well, I think that there is overwhelming evidence that they are not real. That's, of course, for you to decide as we read this and take a look at this and then compare it with the secret book of John. But I think that there is enormous zero evidence for it and enormous evidence that this is all false. It's very, very similar to the story of Joseph Smith, the founder of Mormonism, who, had contact with the angel Moroni, who led him to find these secret golden plates that were engraved in Egyptian language. And he translated them and wrote the Book of Mormon based on those translations. And then, he had to give the plates back to the angel, so he couldn't show them to anyone. So very, very, very similar. Check out my other videos if you want to know more about what I think about that. And it says that Doriel, he not only did he claim to have secret knowledge, he claimed there's just a lot. All right. He claimed to have traveled all the way in India and Tibet, but his passport showed that he never actually went to these places. He said that he had memory of all his past lives and all his incarnations. He said that he was he said he was a chosen one or something. He started a religious group called the Brotherhood of the White Temple. He talked about flying saucers and serpent people and a serpent race that was frozen in Siberia that defrosted and overthrew the communist regime in Russia. And even his wife said that he was a fake and a fraud in front of his disciples. So a lot of evidence that the Emerald Tablets are not great. So, but the Secret Book of John, we're going to be comparing it to that. But let's actually read the Emerald Tablets and see what they have to say. So last week we read the first Emerald Tablet, which was all about where the Emerald Tablets came from. And it talks about how they're 36,000 years old. And there's this, Thoth was this basically immortal Atlantean that incarnated multiple times. And he built the Great Pyramid of Giza. And he had a staff that could shoot rays out of it and freeze people in place. All kinds of really wild stuff, right? So now we're looking at the second tablet, and the second tablet is called the Halls of Amenti. Now, let's examine this and see what it has to say. Now, this is automatically going to start talking about these beings called the Children of Light. So we want to talk about the Children of Light, see what they are. We also might touch on different things like in the New Age. In New Age, there's this idea of the 144,000 and being a chosen one and things like that. We might touch on that as well because a lot of this stuff relates to each other. It ties into each other. But let's get started. Let's start talking about this. It's just one of those things where there's so much to unpack. As usual, it's best to get started, and we'll talk about it as we go along. So this is all about the Halls of Amenti and the descent of the Children of Light. Okay, so here we begin reading the second tablet. Deep in Earth's heart lie the Halls of Amenti, far 'neath the islands of sunken Atlantis. Halls of the dead and halls of the living, bathed in the fire of the infinite all. Okay, so one thing that I want to say real quick here, all right? So what they're talking about, deep in that heart, Earth's heart, exists the halls of Amenti, beneath the islands of the sunken Atlantis, the halls of the dead and the living, and it's bathed in the fires of the infinite all. So the infinite all is all reality, the ultimate force of existence. So the question is, right, the thing is, and this is why the Emerald Tablets, I have a little bit of an issue with them, is a lot of it, when you start looking at, and this is why we're going to look at the Secret Book of John, okay? Because I want to compare and contrast the two so you can see kind of the difference here. In esoteric material that I like, it is very clearly allegorical. This kind of stuff reads more like a comic book. All right, you have this guy that was 36,000 years old that can freeze people with his staff ray gun. It reads more like a comic book. Now, so this idea about deep in the heart's earth is the halls of Amenti. It's beneath the sunken Atlantis, halls of the dead and halls of the living. So the question is, like, did Doriel mean this to be literally true, or was he being allegorical when he wrote this? So you could have an allegorical interpretation of this. Like, for example, the halls of Amenti are usually understood to be like a spiritual domain or a metaphysical domain where knowledge is stored. All right. So when you say that deep in the Earth's heart lie the halls of Amenti, far beneath the islands of the sunken Atlantis, halls of the dead and halls of the living, bathed in the fire of the infinite all, one could understand this allegorically. Like, oh, it's not literally in the center of the earth. This is just saying it's like at the heart of existence, saying that it's beneath the islands of the sunken Atlantis. Well, Atlantis is known for having a lot of knowledge and understanding. So it could be saying that the idea that these halls were underneath Atlantis, meaning that this information is how Atlanteans were able to have the knowledge that they had or whatever. And I'm not saying I believe in Atlantis or anything like that, but I'm just, Atlantis itself can be understood in an allegorical and metaphorical way as a state of unity, as a state of understanding and unity and synchronicity. I'll do a whole video on Atlantis at some point, but I just want to say one could interpret this allegorically, where where the halls of Amenti is a spiritual domain that supported beneath Atlantis, not literally, but in a mental way. Being at the center of the earth could be more like the center of reality, and bathed in the fire of the infinite all would be the the energy of all reality, the energy of the absolute, the energy of the one. So one could translate it allegorically like that. But the question is, did Doriel, was he trying to be allegorical, or was he just creating what he thought was an interesting story? Was he talking about, did he literally mean, because if you say it's deep in the earth's heart, bathed in the fire, and, is he saying that it's literally at the center of the earth? So that's the question. You can look at some esoteric material and be like, oh, this is clearly allegorical. And then material like this, where it's like, was he trying to be allegorical? Was he just making up a story that he thought sounded good? Because you can really take in, like, you could take Lord of the Rings and interpret it in a metaphorical and allegorical way. And, the Sauron could represent the shadow, and Gandalf can represent the higher self, and, just different ideas like this. You can interpret anything if you want in a metaphorical and allegorical way, and learn from it. And that's what's important is can you learn from it? And so the question is, with something like this, is did he really intend for it to mean a certain way? Let's just continue, because I'll keep talking about it for a long time. There's a lot more, and you'll see how this starts to unfold, and you can judge for yourself. And I want to compare to you the Emerald Tablets of Thoth with something like the Secret Book of John, because to me, my opinion is the Emerald Tablets of Thoth reads a lot more like a comic book type story with beings with like superpowers and secret places and stuff like that. Whereas the Secret Book of John, in my opinion, lays out an actual structure and to existence in a very highly intelligent way. But let's continue here. So we have deep in the earth's heart, we have the halls of Amenti, beneath the islands of the Atlantis, halls of the dead, halls of the living, bathed in the fire of the infinite all. Far in a past time, lost in space and time, the children of light looked down on the world. Okay, so now we're talking about the children of light. This is important because they're going to be coming up a lot, and we want to know, what are the children of light? There's also beings of light discussed in the Secret Book of John, and then we might also touch in the 144,000 as well if we have time, because a lot of people are talking about that today, especially in New Age circles, like, oh, these 144,000 that have incarnated to change the world. Am I one of these? Am I not? Whatever. So we might touch on that a little bit. So the children, they're in a past time, they're lost in space and time, and they looked down on the world, seeing the children of men in their bondage, bound by the force that came from beyond. Knew they that only by freedom from bondage could man ever arise from the earth to the sun. Down they descend. Okay, so they're looking at the humanity, essentially. They're looking at humanity and going, okay, humanity is basically screwed up. They're not really understanding what existence is. And they knew that only freedom from bondage could man ever rise from the earth to the sun. Now, this, of course, is clearly allegorical, right? People aren't literally going to float from the earth to the sun. They're going to be very crispy very soon if they tried to do that. So this is obviously talking about ascending to a higher consciousness, from the earth to the sun, from a material understanding of reality to a metaphysical understanding of reality, represented by the sun, represented by light, represented by life, the source of light, the source of life. The sun is very, very often representative of, that's why there's a lot of sun worshiping, because the sun is very often representative of the source of all existence. Because, growing up as human beings in a world where, like, in a very primitive time, the sun is the source of light and it's the source of life. It's what gives things life. It's what plants grow. Without the sun, it's dark. You can be eaten by a predator. So the sun is often symbolized as the source of light, source of life, the source of light, the source of knowledge. So this idea of humanity ascending from the earth to the sun is, of course, allegorical of reaching a higher understanding of existence, a material one to an immaterial one. So it says the children of light looked at this and they saw this issue. It says, down they descended and created bodies, taking the semblance of men as their own. So that's pretty straightforward. They created bodies and looked like humans. The masters of everything said after their forming, quote, we are they who were formed from the space dust, partaking of life from the infinite all, living in the world as children of men, like and yet unlike the children of men. So again, you have these spiritual beings, and this can be understood as them incarnating, right? It could be that they incarnated to Earth to help the children of men, humanity, right? So it says, then for a dwelling place far beneath the earth's crust, blasted great spaces they by their power, spaces apart from the children of men, surrounded them by forces and power, shielded from harm, they the halls of the dead, side by side they placed they other spaces, filled them with life and with light from above, builded they then the halls of Amenti, that they might dwell eternally there, living with life to eternity's end. So again, it's kind of an odd way to put things. They're talking about the construction of the halls of Amenti, and this could symbolize the center of a higher consciousness. It can the halls of Amenti are usually representative of a spiritual domain, and so it can be thought of that they're creating a metaphysical space where enlightened beings can reside, and that where they have spiritual knowledge. And this is again where I feel like this type of stuff is a little more comic booky, right? Usually when one starts talking about, if one's talking about the halls of Amenti or the Akashic records or the collective unconscious, it's not so much about establishing places like this. However, if we understand it in an archetypal way, right? So if these children of light represent archetypes, then this is different. So the question is, again, the big question is, did Doriel want to actually embed an allegorical message in here? I know he did. Obviously, he did a little bit, because we can see that clearly with bringing the people from the earth to the sun. But the question is, how deep did he go? Did some of this stuff he go, oh, well, this just sounds really cool for my religion I'm making. Does it sound cool? Or does it actually have a deeper meaning to it? Because if we understand the children of light to be archetypal patterns, then we could understand them as existing in the halls of Amenti, or the mental domain, or the spiritual domain, or the metaphysical domain, helping to order existence and order reality. But the question is, did Doriel intend for that or not? Or are we just imposing something on it? So it says 30 and 2 were of the children. There were 32 of them, sons of lights who had come among men, seeking to free from the bondage of darkness and those who were bound by the force from beyond. Now, of course, the question is like, why 32? Why are there 32 specifically? Is there a reason for this? Why was 32 chosen? At least in this tablet, we'll see if in another tablet there's a reason given. There's no reason given in this tablet. That's another thing that's a kind of a strange thing. But it's not terribly uncommon to have certain numbers associated with in esoteric material. That happens a lot. But using logic and reason, we always want to ask questions like this. And I think the difference is, well, I know the big difference is when we read books like the Secret Book of John, when we read books like all the different Gnostic texts, we explicitly know that, hey, we're reading these as allegories. We're not taking them as literal truth. The problem that I have with the Emerald Tablets is that people are taking them as being literally true. And now this does not raise one's consciousness. This just creates a new religion. That's it. It's just creating another religion. So, but deep in the let's keep going. I know you we're gonna get to this. I'm interested in getting to the Secret Book of John so I can show you the difference, and also talking a bit about the 144,000. But yes, you know that it pains me. It's very difficult for me to read this without being highly critical. Because I grew up in a, you know my background. I grew up in a strict Christian household. It bothers me when people are pushing BS. So it's I know that you enjoy seeing my pain, trying to read this, but I'm going to do so, and it's all going to be good. So we're moving on here. And so we're talking about the halls of life, all right, and the eternal masters. So it says, deep in the halls of life grew a flower, flaming, expanding, driving backward the night. Placed in the center, a ray of great potence, life-giving, light-giving, filling with power all who came near. Placed they around it thrones, 32, places for each of the children of light, placed so that they were bathed in the radiance, filled with the life from the eternal light. There, time after time, placed they their first created bodies so that they might be filled with the spirit of life. 100 years out of each 1,000 must the life-giving light flame forth on their bodies, quickening, awakening the spirit of life. There in the circle from eon to eon sit the great masters, living a life not known among men. So clearly there is some symbology going on here, like the flower, this life-giving flower and things like that. There's obviously some symbolism and allegory going in here, but there's also like a lot of comic booky type elements happening as well. So it would make sense if we're talking about the children of light as being archetypes, talking about them being on thrones, there being a specific number of them, all centered around this light-filled life. It could be interpreted as like an ordering principle, them helping these, because thrones represent power, right? Thrones represent like governance. So if one were taking an archetypal interpretation of this, one would see the children of light as being archetypes that are guiding the mechanics of existence. But it's a little weird to then have them incarnate as well. That's not unheard of, to have the idea of archetypes incarnating, but they're usually incarnated in, like, for example, in Gnosticism, you have Jesus Christ, who is an archetype, but is incarnated as well. And sometimes Christ is even seen as the avatar for Sophia, the Eon of Wisdom, which we'll be talking about in a minute. So it's interesting that we have it. It seems to me, if Doriel is in fact giving an allegorical message here, that these children of light are representative of archetypes, that apparently he says it also incarnated. So we can continue here where it says, there in the halls of life they lie sleeping, free flows their soul through the bodies of men. Time after time, while their bodies lie sleeping, incarnate they in bodies of men, teaching and guiding onward and upward out of the darkness into the light. There in the halls of life, filled with their wisdom, know not the races of man, living forever beneath the cold fire of life, sit the children of light. Times there are when they awaken, come from the depths to be lights among men, infinite they among finite men. So, I think that this is pretty clear here. We're talking about these beings there are 32 of them, called the children of light, that continue to incarnate in body after body after body to help humanity move forward and share their wisdom. And we have this concept found in a lot of esoteric material, in the Gnostic material, and a lot of New Age and spirituality, but Gnosticism as well. You have this idea of individuals who incarnate to help move reality forward. And in this particular one, they are saying that there are 32 of them, and they're giving them a very, very large importance in reality by giving them these thrones bathed in light-giving life. So it continues by saying, seated within the flower of radiance, sit 7 lords from the space-time above us. Okay, so now there's these new beings here. Within the flower of radiance, there are 7 lords from the space-times above us, so apparently from different dimensions, helping and guiding through infinite wisdom the pathway through time of the children of men. Mighty and strange, they veiled with their power, silent, all-knowing, drawing the life force, different yet one with the children of men, I different and yet one with the children of light, custodians and watchers of the force of man's bondage, ready to loose when the light has been reached. So you have this hierarchy, basically. You have the 32 children of light who are incarnating on earth and helping humanity move forward. And then you have the 7 lords that exist in a higher dimension and are watching and guiding humanity from that vantage point. Now, it says, first and most mighty sits the veil. And remember, there's just a little bit more here. I want to read it, and then we're going to turn to the secret book of John. And I really want you to see the difference here between the writing styles in this and the secret book of John. And so hopefully I can show you the important differences between these types of materials. So let's just read this, and then we'll take a look at that. It says, first and most mighty sits the veiled presence, Lord of Lords, the infinite 9, over the others from each the lords of the cycles, 3, 4, 5, and 6, 7, 8, each with his mission, each with his powers, guiding, directing the destiny of man. There sit they, mighty and potent, free of all time and space, not of this world, yet akin to it, elder brothers they of the children of men, judging and weighing they with their wisdom, watching the progress of light among men. So the Emerald Tablets have this really weird mix of having comic book-esque like situations, but they're you can find some allegory and symbolism in there, because we can understand them as these different lords of lords, and each having different cycles. We can understand, each having their own mission and each with their own power. This is very similar to Gnosticism, just a lot less complex, very, very, very dumbed down, and more cartoonish, more simplistic in its ideas, because Gnosticism, as we'll see as we read the secret book of John, has different powers with different missions and goals, but it goes into a lot more detail as like, well, what are there? What do these things do? What exactly are there? There's just a lot in here that's very general and very vague, and that's very, very similar to, that's how Doriel writes. It's very similar to Doriel. If you read Doriel's opening to this, he's extremely general. He was like, oh, well, I got a mental connection to the Great White Brotherhood, and they told me to find the Emerald Tablets. And so I did find the Emerald Tablets, and I had a lot of adventures, but I'm not going to talk about them, but I found them, then I translated them, and then I gave them back. It's not exact. Well, it's literally that simple in his explanation of how he found them. He literally just goes, so I got them. I'm not going to talk about how. That's a story for another time. But you can see that writing style carries over. This sort of like simplistic generalities carries over in his writing of the Emerald Tablets. Because, I mean, let's get real. This is written by Doriel. It's not written by Thoth, right? So, and I think what rubs me the wrong way about this too is that like this was clearly written by a guy full of BS. So I think one has to be careful when examining information like this. So there are people out there who write information out there and actually have positive intentions and try to transmit things that they think will help humanity. And I think, Doriel probably, no one thinks they're the bad guy. Doriel probably thought he was helping humanity, but really this was trying to start a new religion. This was a religion that didn't take off. This would be like if we were reading the Book of Mormonism, the Book of Mormon by Joseph Smith, if it never took off. Mormonism took off, and there's a whole religion around it, and it's affected many people very, very, very negatively. A lot of trauma has resulted from it. And so ideas like this just rub me the wrong way when it's presented in the way that it is, right? So let's just keep going here. Because I want to talk to you, because you might even, if you're new here, you might even, I'm talking a little about archetypes. Like, well, what are archetypes? I'm going to explain to you what archetypes are in a short way. So you have all these different beings, right? You have these Lord of Lords, you have these Children of Light, you have these 7 beings as well, all with different missions and powers and things that they are working on, where the Children of Light are those who are incarnating over and over and over and over to continue help humanity, to continue helping humanity. And this is why we're also maybe going to talk about the 144,000, because that's a very similar idea today in New Age spirituality, where it's that the 144,000 are people who have chosen to incarnate on Earth to help build a new Earth. So we're going to be talking about that idea as well. Let's just read through this. Then before them was I, so this is from the Thoth, right? So then before them was I, led by the Dweller, watched him blend with the One from above. So the Dweller is this weird being that they talked about earlier that to me seems very similar to almost like the demiurge in Gnosticism. Not exactly, because I don't think the Dweller created the earth or anything like this, but it said that the Dweller became angry, and from his wrath flooded the earth. Earth was flooded, and that's how Atlantis sunk and all that. So kind of similar to the creator God flooding the world. Similar idea here. But anyway, he went before this other being called the Dweller and watched the Dweller blend with the One from above. So most likely talking about, having a connection to the source of existence. Then from he came forth a voice saying, "Great art thou, Thoth, among children of men. Free henceforth of the halls of Amenti, master of life among children of men. Taste not death, except as thou will it. Drink thou of life to eternity's end. Henceforth forever is life thine for the taking. Henceforth is death at the call of thy hand. Dwell here or leave here when thou desireth. Free is Amenti to the Son of Man. Take thou up life in what form thou desireth. Child of the light that has grown among men, choose thou thy work. For all must labor, never be free from the pathway of light. One step thou hast gained on the long pathway upward. Infinite now is the mountain of light. Each step thou taketh but heightens the mountain. All of thy progress but lengthens the goal. Approach ye ever the infinite wisdom. Ever before thee recedes the goal. Free are ye made now of the halls of Amenti to walk hand in hand with the lords of the world, one in purpose, working together, bring of light to the children of men." Okay, so a lot of that, basically Thoth went up to this being called the Dweller, and this Dweller blended with the One, so had this connection to the source of reality, I'm assuming. And Thoth apparently was immortal at the time. And so the being is basically making him immortal. He's saying, hey, you're not going to taste death. You're going to be immortal. You're going to have access to the halls of Amenti, and you're going to be able to incarnate whenever you want, however you want. So basically, hey, you get all these cool superpowers now. You're immortal, and you can access the spiritual domain at will, and your body will only die when you want it to die, and then you can incarnate in any way that you want. So now Thoth has all these abilities. Pretty cool. So didn't happen, but interesting story. So then from his throne came one of the masters, taking my hand and leading me onward through all the halls of the deep hidden land, led me through the hall. There's just two more paragraphs. Then we're going to look at the secret book of John, and we'll see the difference here. Then from his throne came one of the masters, taking my hand and leading me onward through all the halls of the deep hidden land. Led he me through the halls of Amenti, showing the mysteries that are known not to man. Through the dark passage downward, he led me into the hall where sight the dark death. Vast as space lay the, maybe they meant sit, where sit the dark death, I'm not sure. Vast as space lay the great hall before me, walled by darkness, but yet filled with light. Before me arose a great throne of darkness. Veiled on it sat a figure of night. Darker than darkness sat that great figure, dark with the darkness, not of the night. Before it then paused the master, speaking the word. And again, I would wonder if I'm I'm pretty positive that Doriel was influenced by Freemasonry, because the word is something that comes up a lot in Freemasonry, the word of the master or the lost word of the master, right? So in Freemasonry, there's this idea of the lost word of the master. And here he's talking about the master speaking the word that brings about life. So to me, that clearly goes, oh, Masonic influence. And this is really common. Joseph Smith had family who was Freemasons, was very familiar with Freemasonry when he established when he wrote the Book of Mormon, and ultimately became a Freemason. And that's why there are tons of Masonic symbols in Mormonism. There's the all-seeing eye, there's the pentagram, there's the bee in the honeycomb. I think there's a few others as well. But yeah, there's a lot of Masonic symbolism in these religions. So anyway, like I said, to me, that's just a big call out here that, oh, this seems very Masonically influenced. So before it then paused the master, speaking the word that brings about life, saying, O master of darkness, guide of the way from life unto life, before thee I bring a son of the morning. Touch him not even with the power of night. Call not his flame to the darkness of night. Know him and see him, one of our brothers, lifted from darkness into the light. Release thou his flame from its bondage. Free let it flame through the darkness of light. So, I mean, there's a lot of here about talking about, the contrast between dark and light. So this could be talking about the role of death and transitioning, and emphasizing that life is a cycle of growth and change and transformation, with this interplay of night and light. So then we have the final paragraph here. It says, raised then the hand of the figure, forth came a flame that grew clear and bright, rolled back swiftly the curtain of darkness, unveiled the hall from the darkness of night, then grew in the great space before me, flame after flame from the veil of the night, uncounted millions leaped they before me, some flaming forth as flowers of fire. Others there were that shed a dim radiance, flowing but faintly from out of the night. Some there were that faded swiftly, others that grew from a small spark of light, each surrounded by its dim veil of darkness, yet flaming with light that could never be quenched. Coming and going like fireflies in springtime, filled they with space, with light, and with life. They spoke a voice mighty and solemn, saying, these are lights that are souls among men, growing and fading, existing forever, changing yet living through death into life. When they have bloomed into flower, reached the zenith of growth in their life, swiftly then send I my veil of darkness, shrouding and changing to new forms of life, steadily upward throughout the ages, growing, expanding into yet another flame, lighting the darkness with yet greater power, quenched yet unquenched by the veil of the night. So grows the soul of man ever upward, quenched yet unquenched by the darkness of night. I, death, come, and yet I remain not, for life eternal exists in the all, only an obstacle, I in the pathway, quick to be conquered by the infinite light. Awaken, O, the flames that burns ever inwards, flame forth and conquer the veil of night. So we basically have the idea of understanding the illusion of death, right? Like the reality is a cycle of life and death, but that ultimately life is eternal. That's what it means. Eternal life exists in the all. Death is only an obstacle, and death can be conquered by the infinite light. So the way that one conquers death, right? The way that one conquers death is by realizing that you are already immortal. Not only immortal, but you're eternal. Now, your body is not. Your body can die. So you have to, we always emphasize you want to be safe. You want to take care of your body. You want to be very healthy. But you aren't your body. You are an eternal mind. You are what we call a zeta. You are a being of infinite energy. You are a being of frequency patterns that is simply interfacing with this body to be able to localize and interact in the space-time environment. But that's not what you actually are. So to conquer death is to realize you can't die. Your body absolutely can, but you never will. So death is an illusion. Death does not exist. Death as a permanent state does not exist. Now, avataric death, as the breaking down of the interface between you as a soul, as a zeta, and your body, yes, that actually exists, but you're never going to dissolve into nothingness and non-existence. You will always exist. We will always exist because we are the all. We are the infinite all. We are the all there is. But once again, always remember, be safe and take care of yourself because your avatar absolutely can get damaged and hurt and die. So be very careful. But understand that you as an eternal being are eternal. And in that sense, death is an illusion, and that is important. So we're going to take a look at the Secret Book of John now, and I want to compare and contrast. But just real quick, I want you to just kind of think about the feel of this, how it sort of feels. And I just have issue with the Emerald Tablets of Thoth because, one, they're written by a very dubious individual. Like, this individual was clearly a shyster and messing with people. And so the question is, right, this is where you get to the idea where, okay, clearly this person, and this is the problem I have with like secret societies and things like this, and esotericism and the occult. You have people that raise their consciousness. And so they can think in ways that most people can't. And so they have the power to manipulate people. Yet they haven't raised their consciousness enough to realize how to wield this responsibly. So what they end up doing, instead of actually teaching people, right? Instead of actually teaching people, they create religions because they go, oh, well, people are too dumb to understand the truth. So we're going to make these stories up so that people can believe in the stories. And then, that'll help them live a better life. Well, the problem is that people take the stories literally and then kill each other because of it. So this is why, my whole goal is to make the information that will lead humanity to a higher consciousness easily available and accessible without all this extra crazy bullshit, because it's really hard if you're trying to understand higher consciousness, and there's some good ideas in here, like you being eternal and death being an illusion in a certain sense, but then it comes with a 36,000-year-old superhero who's got a ray gun that can freeze people, and he built the Great Pyramid of Giza, and a guy that found tablets that connected to his mind. That's not okay. This is how, people, you start to go crazy when you start to believe in these things. And we see all this stuff everywhere where people start believing in, oh yeah, and then the earth is flat and the moon is hollow and there's aliens living in the moon and blah, 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 blah. That's not reaching a higher consciousness. Could there be aliens living in the moon? Sure, maybe, but probably not. There's no evidence to support that. But believing that aliens live in the moon doesn't raise your consciousness. Understanding how to use metacognition, concept networking, having phenomenological experiences, understanding to form higher concepts in the mind, literally developing a new structure in the psyche that is a model of all reality that one then identifies with their absolute self. This is how it's about creating higher and higher thought patterns. And this entails exploring one's own mind, not believing in beings that freeze people with their magic staff. And that's the problem that I have with this stuff, is because I grew up and I don't like what religion does. And this is an attempt to create a religion. It just didn't take off. Except now there's a lot of people in the New Age and spiritual community going, you got to read the Emerald Tablets of Thoth. It's from Atlantis and it's 36,000 years old. No, it's not. It was written in 1925 by Maurice Doreal. And there's some interesting things in there, but a lot of it reads very, very superhero-like. But let's, because I want to talk about the 144,000 and like, are you one of the 144,000, etc. And, but let's, I just want to read to you real quick some elements of the Secret Book of John that I feel are similar to this, but also different. So when it comes to the Secret Book of John, right, it starts off by John having a vision from Jesus, and then Jesus basically telling John how reality operates. Now, the difference is with the Secret Book of John is that when we read this stuff, it wasn't really written by John, and John and the guy who wrote it maybe had, a lot of people were having visions and stuff back then. We don't know what kind of consciousness humanity really had. It's possible that humanity had more visions back then, or they just put it in an allegorical story form. We don't really know. But the point is when we read things like the Secret Book of John, we're not going, oh my God, like, you know, it really happened this way. When it says that like Jesus was in the Garden of Eden, it's like we know that Jesus wasn't literally in the Garden of Eden. It's representative of, the Garden of Eden is representative of a lower state of consciousness, and leaving the Garden of Eden, one raises one's state of consciousness, etc. But anyway, that's the difference here when we read books like the Secret Book of John, is that we're not claiming that they are absolute truth. We're going, oh, these are very interesting stories that contain allegorical information that we can learn from, not believing that it's literally true. And so as an example, let's take a look at this here. So this is from the Secret Book of John. I'm reading from gnosis.org. You can read all the Gnostic texts that were found in the Nag Hammadi, buried in the tombs, near the tombs of Egypt, in a grave in 1945, I want to say it was found. And see, that's another thing. We have these texts. They were found, they were studied, they were dated. It's not like these were written on magic stones from the space wizards that we had to give back after they transmitted their message to our minds and someone wrote it down. No, like these are actual things that were found in 1945, and they're dated back to something like, it depends which book it is. Usually it's like CE, 200 CE, around 200 CE-ish. So they're damn old. I mean, they're not 36,000 years old, but see, that's different. We actually have these texts. They exist. They're not written by, it's not written by who it says it's written by, but none of these things were written by who they're said they were written by. It's very unlikely that even the Gospels were written by. It was very, very common to use a different name right under a different name back then. Plato did it. Plato wrote under Socrates, put his teachings in terms of Socrates. Anyway, let's continue here. So I want you to see. So let me just start reading and you'll see what I mean. So this is from the Secret Book of John. It says, the Holy Spirit brought his and Barbelos, divine Autogenes, son, to completion, in order that he could stand before the great invisible Virgin Spirit as the divine Autogenes Christ and honor him with a mighty voice. Okay, so real quick, before we get into these beings of light, I just want to talk about what that means, what's going on here. So according to Gnosticism, what exists is the one. That's it. That's all reality. An ineffable being of pure light, pure mind, all unity. It is the one. The first emanation of the one is known as the Barbelo, or the mother. So the one is considered the father. The first emanation is considered the mother. And so we can understand this as the father being thought, right? The father being thought, and the mother, Barbelo, being thinking. And then it says, when the father looked upon the mother, the son was created as another emanation. So what this means here is when you have the father look upon the mother, right? This is thought, thinking about itself, which generates the son, which represents self-thinking thought. So you have the father, which is thought, you have the mother, which is thinking, and then you have the Son, which is self-thinking thought. And you see all these elements are in a single system, though. You have the Father, which is thought, the first thought of the Father. The Father is now thinking. The first thought of the Father is the Mother. And then when the Father reflects upon that thought, it's thought thinking about itself, which is represented by the Son. And so you have the Father, the Mother, and the Son. But these are all very... So already, do you see like how much more intricately... We haven't even really started with what I want to talk about here, but do you see how the depth that is contained in information like this, rather than the Emerald Tablets of Thoth, where they talk about this guy that was like 36,000 years old that was freezing people with his staff and talking to the... And there are some elements like that in Gnosticism. You'll find some stuff like that, but it's also with some extremely deep, highly intelligent material hidden in allegorical form. So let's just continue here. And by the way, yes, this was a book that was banned by the church after the Council of Nicaea. And, all these books were burned, and people reading them or who had them were considered heretics, and some of them were killed. But like I said, luckily someone preserved them, buried them in the tombs near Egypt, and they were found in 1945 when some grave robbers were coming by. Really cool story. Anyway, so it says the invisible spirit placed the divine autogenes over everything. So the invisible spirit is the Father. It is thought. Placed the divine autogenes over everything. The divine autogenes is the Son or Christ. If we're being allegorical here, it's the Son or Christ. So it's setting, self-thinking thought above everything. And it says all authorities were subordinate to him. The truth within him, let him learn everything. He is called by the highest name of all. That name will be told only to those who are worthy to hear it from the light. Okay, so here's the important part. Now we're going to be talking about beings of light. All right, so you're going to see some similarities here to the children of light in Doriel's work. Not definitely not exactly the same, but you'll see what I mean. So from the incorruptibility, the four lights arising from the divine autogenes stood before him. The four fundamental powers are understanding, grace, perception, and consideration. Okay, so here's what's cool about this, right? So we're talking about, remember, we have the Father and the Mother and the Son, and this is all allegorical for thought thinking and thought thinking about itself, self-thinking thought. And then from this, you have the four lights of understanding, grace, perception, and consideration. And you'll notice these are all structures of the mind. So this is the mind structuring itself. This is a mental being that is structuring itself internally. So you have the four fundamental powers now. You have understanding, you have perception, you have consideration, you have grace. These are archetypal powers of the mind. But it's being represented as beings in allegorical ways, right? So it says grace exists within the realm of light called Harmazel, the first angel. Along with Harmazel are grace, truth, and form. The second light is called Oriel, and it stands over the second realm. With Oriel are conceptualization, perception, and memory. The third light is called Devathai, and it stands over the third realm. With Devathai are understanding, love, and idea. The fourth light is called Elalith, and it stands over the fourth realm. With Elalith are perfection, peace, and wisdom. These are the four lights standing before the divine autogenes. So this is talking about a mind that is structuring itself. Now it's using like angels or eons really as being symbolically representative of it. We're talking about the angel Harmazel and Oriel and Devathai. But what do they represent? Well, the four lights represent understanding, grace, perception, and consideration. Literally the ability to understand things. Literally the ability to perceive things. And from these then are further emanations, which are things like grace and truth and form, the conceptualization, the ability to conceptualize things, perception, memory, understanding, love, idea, perfection, peace, and wisdom. So you see that these are all ideas or structures of the mind. And So, one thing I can get across when you're comparing the two texts, when you're comparing like the Emerald Tablets of Thoth to like the Secret Book of John, and we're just reading a little piece of it, right? It's quite long, not terribly long, but it's, there's a little bit to it. And it's all, most of it is like this, where it's extremely deep. So when you have, like in the Emerald Tablets, where it's like, well, there were these 32 children of light, and they like have thrones, and they incarnate and help humanity. And then there's these other master guys. And then, oh yeah, I'm Thoth, and I met with the Dweller, and I got invincibility. It's just a very dumbed down version of it. And again, that's fine if people weren't believing it's true, and then that's the danger of having a religion start around it. That's the problem. That's the issue. We don't want a religion to start around not only faulty material, but material that was written by someone who's, like not clearly has a manipulative agenda. And so when you look at this, right, you have the different lights in Gnosticism, which are known as eons, and they're all aspects of reality. They're archetypes. And so what are archetypes? You hear archetypes a lot. Archetypes are, and I'll explain them real quick. Easy way to understand archetypes. Archetypes are mental structures, right? Conceptualization, perception, memory, understanding, love, idea, perfection, peace, wisdom. These are all structures of the mind. They allow you to do certain things. Conceptualization allows you to conceptualize things. Memory allows you to store memories. They have different functions. They're different structures of the mind. Now, back when this was written, they called these eons or angels. But I mean, what are they gonna call them? They're writing with the knowledge and language that they had at the time. They didn't have the understanding of psychology like we have today. So they call them eons or angels, or the lights. And so archetypes are mental structures. And if it's still a little confusing, best way to understand archetypes are like apps on a phone. If your phone, imagine your phone and like the operating system of your phone, the iOS, if you have an iPhone, that's like your mind. The different apps on it are like archetypes. You have an app that lets you take pictures. You have an app that lets you store photos. You have an app that lets you take notes. Every single app on your phone allows you to do something different. Now, you'll also notice that the apps have symbols and names. Your photo editing app might be called Phototron or something. I don't know. And it might have a picture of a paintbrush on it, or a person holding a paintbrush, right? Now, is that program literally named? Does it literally have a name? Does it literally look like that? No, that's a representation of it to help you understand it, to help you access it. So that's what archetypes are. So when you see people that are like invoking angels, like in the Lesser Banishing Ritual of the Pentagram, when you invoke the different archangels, Raphael, Michael, and Raphael, and Michael, Raphael, Uriel, and who am I missing? Gabriel. You have the four archangels, and you're invoking them. Well, these just represent different structures of the mind. Like Michael usually represents will. Raphael usually represents intuition. So when you are invoking these archangels are like the apps that you are selecting. You're selecting, oh, I want to be more in touch with my intuition. I'm going to invoke Raphael. I have a will, something I need to fortify my will. I'm going to invoke Michael, or whatever ritual you're doing, whatever. But these are just representations for the mind to be able to understand how to access these structures that exist within you. So it's like selecting an app. The app is Michael, that you understand to be a certain angel with certain attributes, but it's not actually that. That's just a representation for the structure of mind representative of will. Just like an app, when your phone app isn't the actual icon, the icon just allows you to access it. So that's a bit interesting way how to understand archetypes. Now, when we're talking about archetypes like conceptualization and wisdom, and these are like the most fundamental archetypes that you can possibly get. They're fundamental to how we're able to, structure the mind, right? They're the very basic apps that you need for the phone to function in a way that's interesting, rather than it just kind of sitting there and doing nothing. It allows you to access the camera feature. It allows you to access the audio recording. It allows you to take notes. These are the very basic features of mind. And so you have these functions, but if and for those of you who follow my channel, we talk about Gnosticism a lot. In addition to eons, there are also archons. And archons are also structures of the mind, but they are, like these are envisioned as beings of light. Archons are envisioned as beings of darkness and are evil. And archons represent things like wrath or ignorance or envy or whatever, different things like that. And so you'll notice that these are also structures of the mind, but these are structures of the mind that hold the mind back. Ignorance and wrath and envy, etc. So according to Gnosticism, you have to, in order to reach the realms of light, you have to defeat the archons. And defeating the archons isn't about like literally, going to toe with these beings. It's about conquering those structures in your own mind, integrating your mind so that you're able to overcome the aspects that are blocking you: ignorance, false knowledge, wrath, etc. You conquer the archons by overcoming these aspects. And critically in Gnosticism, gnosis is what allows you to truly understand existence. And this is understanding yourself, know thyself. So when you look within and know what you are, and know that you are a being of light, not a being of matter, then you start to have a true understanding of existence, and your consciousness raises. So my whole point talking about this and the Secret Book of John, we just read a little part of it. And it's not exactly the same thing, because these eons don't really, they sometimes incarnate. It depends which version of Gnosticism you're reading. Like Sophia has an aspect of herself called Zoe, which ends up incarnating as Eve, which is interesting. So there is an incarnation aspect to this as well. Eons typically don't incarnate, but they do sometimes. But you can see that, if you just there's not a one-to-one correspondence here at all. Of course not. But I'm just saying, if you look at the two, I think you can see a very big difference in style and depth and content. There are elements that are comic booky in Gnosticism, like, let's say, Norea burning down the ark by blowing on it. Norea blows on it, burns down. So there are some things like that, but Gnosticism is a lot more focused on the allegory behind it and the meanings behind it, rather than like some people get obsessed with the Emerald Tablets and think that they are literally true, and that's when you have a problem. And the Emerald Tablets are much more focused on those comic booky type elements with a lot less symbolism and allegory, and the symbolism and allegory there is not very deep in my opinion. And I wouldn't be so, I know that it seems like I'm being kind of harsh on the Emerald Tablets, but the reason why I'm being harsh on the Emerald Tablets is because I wouldn't care if people were like, oh yeah, these are not real, but let's see what we could learn from them. Let's see what Doriel had to say. But that's not how it's being presented, and that's the problem. So let's talk real quick about the 144,000. Let's throw that in there real quick. So we're talking about the 144,000. So this is the idea that's going around in a lot of New Age and spiritual circles. And someone brought this up. I forget who it was that brought this up in the chat, but someone brought it up in the chat earlier. And might have been Esoteric Luna, maybe? I can't remember. Might have been. Anyway, someone brought it up in the chat. It was a good question about the 144,000. So the 144,000 is this new age idea that that there are those who have chosen to incarnate on earth to help create a new earth. Okay. And someone asked, how do I feel about that? So how I feel about that, right? I believe that it is possible. So if that's your question, are you someone who has chosen to incarnate? I prefer the term localize. I think we need to get away from some of this religious language and show that, because in meta-rationalism, we want to show we can understand what this really, incarnation is a very vague concept. What's going on? How does it work? Localization is very clear. The avatar is localized. It allows a non-local mind to have a localized experience, which means it allows it to have an experience in a space-time dimensionality. It allows it to interpret signals through organs that give it a space-time experience, right? It's like putting on a VR headset. You interface with an avatar that allows a mind or a Zedic mind or a soul to have a localized experience. It localizes it. There's a certain place that it allows it to be. So anyways, that's just a tangent. But we have here the idea that the 144,000, these are people who chose to incarnate. Is that possible? I absolutely believe that it is possible that minds, souls can choose to incarnate. I believe that is possible. Now, can we say for sure that you did, or I did, or someone else did? No, we can't say for sure. We can have strong intuitions about the possibility that this might be true, but we can't say for sure. And we want to be clear about that because we don't want to start new religions. We want to be very clear about what we know and what we can't know and what might be true and what might not be true. And we can say, oh, I have a very strong intuition that I chose to incarnate to help humanity move forward. One can say that. But if one goes, oh, yes, absolutely, for sure, I am the incarnation of Thoth and I am here to guide you all, that's a problem. And that's stuff like that is what happens in secret societies. I'm kind of surprised that Doriel didn't claim to be an incarnation of Thoth. It's this idea that, one uses it to have a sense of authority, but the whole point here is to raise consciousness, and that kind of thing doesn't raise consciousness. Now you just have a savior figure that you're worshiping. But my point is, like I'm saying, is that we can have very strong intuitions about these things, but we want to be real, we want to be rational, we want to understand what we can know and what we can't know. It's very possible that I or you chose to incarnate to help create a new earth. Very possible. But guess what? It doesn't matter because we have the power to do it. Whether we chose to or not, doesn't matter. We have the power to do it. So the thing that I don't like about the 144,000 idea is that, first of all, why 144,000? I know it comes from the Bible, but okay, but why? Like, why is it 144? Well, it just is. How do you know that? You're just taking that on faith. And so, but this idea that there can only be 144,000, I think is also very limiting, because then people worry. They go, oh, well, how do I know if I'm one of the 144,000? Maybe I'm not. I don't know. I don't feel very special. So shit, I guess I can't change the world. I guess I just, man, someone else is going to do it. I don't like that. I like, what I'm trying to get across is that every single one of you watching this has the power to change the world. You are an eternal mind of infinite potential. And you don't have to be a part of the special 32 club or the special 144,000. You don't have to, you don't have to be a part of any of that. You are powerful as you are. And you can actualize that potential to change and transform yourself and the world. You don't have to be a part of some special club. You don't have to know some secret handshake. You don't have to be initiated in some weird ritual or anything like that. If there's nothing wrong with rituals. Rituals can be really powerful and rituals can be very meaningful. I'm not against rituals. Rituals can be very psychologically powerful. But when you're using it in a way, in a manipulative way, then that's the problem. So the idea with the 144,000, I'm not real. That's not something I push. I don't like that idea. If others push it, I don't have a huge problem with it because it's not that damaging. And it can help people think, ooh, okay, I'm part of the 144,000. I'm going to help change the world. So if there are people out there who are believing they're part of the 144,000 and people are teaching that, I don't have a huge problem with it because it gets people to do things. And we need a new world. I don't push that because I want everyone to realize that they have the power to change the world and not be the part that have to be part of this arbitrary 144,000 thing. So it's not an idea that so now if it's understood in a symbolic way, right? If it's understood like, oh, well, it's not actually 144,000. We just use that number because it comes from the Bible and it has symbolic meaning. So really it could be anyone. We just say the 144,000 is like a symbol, as a metaphor. If it's allegorical, metaphorical, symbolic, I have no problem with that. If you're like, ooh, we're, kind of like if you said, oh, the 32 children of light, but we just say it's 32. It could be anybody. We're all the children of light. And you can just say that you are part of it when you realize that's what you realize you're an eternal being and you're here to change the world, right? So if you go, oh, okay, well, I'm part of the 144,000 when I realize that I'm an eternal being and can change the world, then I'm part of the 144,000, but there aren't actually 144,000. That's just a symbol. That's just a metaphor that we pulled from the Bible to like inject meaning into this. We know it's a metaphor. We know if people push it in that way, that's fine. I don't have a problem with that. I don't have a problem with representations and symbols and metaphors and allegories as long as it's explicitly understood that it's symbolic and metaphorical and allegorical. Okay. So this is all, it's really important. It might seem like subtle differences, but it's little things like this that can lead to big problems down the road. This is where, imagine 500 years in the future, this becomes a religion. And now you have a 144,000 ruling class and the rest of humanity are now slaves or something because the 144,000 go, oh, well, we are really the only ones who know how reality should work. We are the ones who know that how the earth should be guided. So we are the masters now. We are the ruling elite. And what you might go, oh, but that's not what the 144,000 is really about or teaches. Well, yeah, I know, but religions twist things. That's how you get, the teachings of Jesus, which was about helping and loving each other. And now it's about, banning gay marriage and not letting women have choices and a bunch of terrible stuff that has nothing to do with what Christ says. So that's what happens with religions. And we just need to be careful. That's why we want to stay logical and rational while being tapped into intuition. But through the Neogenian system of meta-rationalism, we want to understand metaphysics rationally and be grounded. So the question is, right, like, are you a children of light? Are you part of the 140,000? Are you a chosen one? So here's the deal. You are the children, one of the children of light, as soon as you realize that you are eternal and that you can change the world. You are one when you realize that. You're always one, really. It's just making it explicit rather than explicit or implicit. Just like how you're always eternal. But when you realize you're eternal, you could say, oh, I have achieved immortality because you realize the realization, and that changes things. Because when you realize you're eternal, you realize, oh, I have existed across lifetimes. And so you can start planning in ways that you've never planned before. Just like when you become self-aware, you can realize, oh, wow, I can plan for next week. A dog can't plan for next week. A human can plan for next week. Someone who taps into all awareness, becomes all aware, realizes that they have existed across lifetimes and can conceive existence in a much different way and understand consequences of actions and the unity of reality in a much different way. So anyway, all of us are children of the light. We are all children of the light. When we make that realization that we are and we can change the world, that's when we start actualizing the truth. So that's what we are. You are one when you realize that. And that's anytime. You always are one. It's just making it explicit. It's just consciously realizing, oh, I am. And it doesn't matter if you're like, oh, but I don't know if I chose to incarnate, or doesn't matter. None of that matters. What matters is that you are here and you have the consciousness now and you have the understanding now and you have the power to change yourself and change the world. And if all this sounds maybe you're not sure about this, like, well, I don't really know. How do I change the world? It starts with you. So you start by changing yourself, which means you start learning. So your very first step is just about learning. I forget what band, there's this great lyric by a band that says something, it's something along the lines of, everyone wants to change the world, but nobody wants to change themselves. And I think that's a really great line, because yeah, there are a ton of people out. Look at all the people who are murdering because they want to change the world, but they don't change themselves. We will have a new world and a better world when we change ourselves, because we are the world. So if you're wondering, how do I get started? It starts with you. It starts with your transformation. So start understanding yourself. Know thyself, and you will know the universe and the gods, because you are the universe and the gods. So it starts with you, self-knowledge, self-understanding. When everyone's, oh, where do I look? Where do I go? It's all in here. It's all in you. And so all this stuff that we read is really interesting and helpful, but it's ultimately about giving you tools to be able to look within yourself, right? It's like all of these things should be mirrors. All of these things should be tools to help you understand yourself and existence, not weird fairy tales to believe in, not weird, oh, there's this guy that's 36,000 years old that built the pyramids and can freeze people with their ray gun. That's not starting to have a higher consciousness. That's just believing in BS. Starting to reach a higher consciousness is going, oh, the mind, like if we're understanding the secret book of John, oh, the mind is structured in a certain way. There are certain archetypes, and there are some archetypes that are limiting and some archetypes that are freeing. And, if we were to go further in that, we would start talking about integration, where we need to use those archetypes in unison with it, because you can't just eliminate our archetypes. You have to get them to work together, work in harmony. So you have to harmonize them. But anyways, that's a story for another time. We'll talk about that another time. But Jay, just realize, you matter and you're powerful. And that's what's important to understand. There's all these systems that are like, oh, you got to be a part of this special club. No, you are powerful. You matter. You are the fiery core of existence, as we all are. We are the eternal light of the absolute. So I hope you enjoyed this video, my friends. As always, make sure that you like and subscribe. It helps, get this information out there. I really appreciate it. Also, if you enjoy my work and you want to help me make better and bigger videos, reach more people, support over on Patreon, patreon.com/MorgueOfficial. You'll get access to all of our members only videos. And like I said before, you get access to the one we just did on memory. Where's memory stored? I thought that was I thought it was really interesting. So I'd recommend that one. Anyway, or you can support on YouTube at tier 2 or higher by hitting the join button right below this video to also get access to those members only videos. And I want to give a big shout out to everyone who does support. And remember, as always, too, I forgot to say, hey, this isn't church, so don't feel obligated to support monetarily. You don't have to. It helps out a lot, but you don't have to. There are plenty of free ways you can support, like liking, subscribing, and sharing. And I want to give a big shout out to everyone who does support, especially Renaissance Fairy, Cassidy, Angela, the Halloween Mom, DB, Enki, Nuselina, Masam, Eric Fire, Christopher Smith, the Eternal Empire, and everyone else. Thank you very much.